Afternoon. I'm so excited to be going live again finally. It's been a while. It's been a hot minute, and I'm super looking forward to getting back into it with you. But today we're going to talk about 5 ways to introduce a new piece to your choir. And before we get into the content, I just figured I should introduce myself again since it's been a long time since I was here. My name is Andrea Oram, and I help music teachers figure out how to get out of the 9 to 5 without working nights and weekends. And that's because that's how I've done it. That's what I've done. I've been able to successfully replace my 9 to 5 public school income with multiple income streams from home. So I only work about 2 days a week instead of about 5 plus. Let's be real. It's more like 6 days a week. So anyway, I'm just super excited to share this with you today because I am working on concert music planning, stuff like that, and I have start teaching again tomorrow. And so I figured, hey, I should share a little bit about what I'm working on. So here are 5 ways to introduce a new piece to your choir. And yes, I am looking at my notes because mom life, I have a little one running around at my feet, and having notes is helpful. So the first one is to go through the piece like a roadmap. So this works really well if you have a good recording of the song that you're working on, so that your choirs have a good idea right off the bat of kind of where they're headed and what it could sound like. And this can really help with choirs who are new to reading music. So this could be like an elementary choir of some sort, or even a new to actually holding music adult type choir. But you can hand them the music and then tell them to follow along with their part. Make sure they know which part is theirs, and then tell them to follow along with their part while they're listening, so they can kind of start to attach what they're seeing with what they're hearing. So that's one way. Number 2 and number 3 kind of go together. They are to introduce either a rhythmic motif, if there's a tricky rhythm spot that they might need to be figuring out how to navigate to, so you can introduce that first so that when they come across it each time it happens in the piece, it's not so tricky. And then the flip side, you could, instead of picking a rhythmic motif, you could pick a melodic motif. This works well if there is like a tricky interval or a specific spot that you know might trip them up. That works really well for introducing that little melodic content before you get into the piece much further. So you can see that some of these ways of introducing are dependent on what piece you're looking at. Another example would be if there is a specific refrain or chorus part that comes back over and over, to start by introducing that piece so that they are familiar with that as it comes back. And then as you add the verses in, maybe the verses have different harmony parts or different other layering to them. Then as the chorus part comes back, they are able to then really attach to that and have that part down before they get into the other sections of the piece. 2 more. Number 4 is, no wait, that was number 4. I guess I have 6. You get a bonus one today. Number 5 is to start at the end and work towards the beginning. So if you start at the end, the last section of the piece, you teach that, and then you add a section of the piece on in front of that, so that as you learn the piece, you can keep running the part where you started to the end. So they get really, really competent at the end. This works well if there's a tricky spot at the end that you want to really nail down and them have super confident. And then if it's potentially like a thinner part at the beginning, like it's just unison or something like that, that works really well for that kind of piece. And then here's your bonus one. It's called layering. I don't know if that's what it's actually called. That's what I call it. And I'll show you an example from a piece I'm looking at. So this is from a resource called Rounds Plus, which is arrangements by Roger Emerson. Go Roger Emerson. He's amazing. I threw the link for this product in the comments if you're like, hey, I want to look at that. So check that out in the description of the description of this video. So you can see, hey, that's what I'm referencing. And I think it's a really valuable resource. It makes things super easy, and it's a reproducible collection. So if you are low on budget, you can make copies for your specific students, and that is a really awesome feature of this. But anyway, I digress. So I'm going to be using the round Jubilate Deo, which I already knew the round and was familiar with, but here he gives 2 different versions in 2 different keys, a high version and a low version. And this is where the layering technique really works well, is I'm going to be teaching the bass line first, so that when my students encounter the melody, which may be easier for their ears to hear, or maybe they recognize it already. They already kind of know the song a little bit, which I haven't taught this piece, and I'm not expecting my students to, but in case you pick a round that they're already familiar with, because there's other ones in here that they would be familiar with. So I'll start by teaching the bass line, which might be trickier for them to hold on their own so that they get really confident and steady on that bass line part. And then as we add in the other parts, that bass line can remain strong. And then that layering effect takes place. This can work well for teaching homophonic, harmonic parts too. I just am going to use that technique specifically with this one. So I hope this was helpful for you if you are starting a new semester right now and you're like, man, I need some new ideas for introducing new concert pieces or just new pieces in general if you're not going to be performing them, but you're just going to be working on them in class. That hopefully gives you some fresh ideas as you're working on stuff. Let me know in the comments if you have a specific piece. You're like, oh, this piece would work really well for that specific introduction technique. I would love to hear that. And I'm sure there are other people who are watching who could benefit from that kind of perspective from or idea from you as well. And then also if you are like, hey, I really want to try this technique, let me know in the comments which one you're trying. And we would love to hear a follow-up how it goes after you do it, because that is really encouraging for everybody around here. And if you're like, hey, this was a helpful information, we talk about this a lot in the Freelance Music Teacher Moms group. So pop over there it's a Facebook group. So pop over there if you are not watching from there already, and we can have more in-depth conversations there. Have an awesome rest of your day, and I will catch you on the next live.